are being taught to muse on what man can do. They are not being taught to muse on what God can do. You better teach them to study the stars. Did you know there's enough stars out there that everybody on earth can personally own 2 trillion of them to yourself? The Hubble telescope was asked to focus in on a dot that they thought was a black spot in space, about the size of a grain of sand, held at arm's length. After looking at that black dot for 10 days and taking pictures, they discovered there are more stars than they could count in that one spot. The Bible says, "Speak to the earth, and it shall teach thee." Did you know the earth is like a big magnet? And magnets constantly lose their strength. The earth's magnet has lost 6% of its strength in the last 150 years. Interesting. Well, the earth's magnetic field is getting weaker, which means that it used to be stronger. How many can figure that out? Okay. That means it cannot be billions of years old, because if you go back 30 or 40,000 years, the magnetic field was too strong for life to exist here. That also means carbon dating doesn't work, because the amount of C14 in the atmosphere is directly related to how much radiation gets in, which would be deflected by the magnetic field if it were stronger. Carbon dating doesn't work. We cover that on videotape number 7. Just give you an example. One of the early carbon daters said the lower leg of the mammoth he dated was 15,000 years old, but the skin was 21,000. Same animal. One part of a mammoth is 29,000 years old, another part's 44,000. Again, same animal. Cover lots more on that on videotape number 7. Your kids are going to be taught in the textbooks, well, yes, the magnetic field is getting weaker, but that's because it's part of a longer pattern of reversals. The magnetic field is reversing. Well, this is simply not true. What happened, they found areas of stronger and weaker magnetism, stronger, weaker, as they went across the mid-Atlantic ridge. There are no reversals, only stronger and weaker. We cover lots more on that on videotape number 6, but there aren't any magnetic reversals. You're also going to be taught that all the continents used to fit together in one big supercontinent called Pangaea. How many have heard of that before? They're probably not going to tell you that in order to make them fit, they shrank Africa about 40%. And they took out all of Central America and Mexico. Hey, ¿qué pasa, señor? ¿Dónde es Mexico? Panama, Costa Rica? We'll get into more of that later. But the earth is turning. We are spinning around. How many knew that already? The earth's going about 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. 1,041.6 for you technical folks. But the earth is slowing down. In 1990, they had to add a tick to the clock because the earth had slowed down and the clocks were off by 1 second. Article right here in the newspaper says Earth's rotation slows down 1,000th of a second or more daily. We're slowing down. In 92, Astronomy Magazine announced Earth's rotation is slowing down. June will be 1 second longer than normal. We will have leap second. Leap second? You know, most folks have heard of leap year, but many people have never heard of leap second. But we have to have a leap second every year to year and a half because the earth is slowing down. Now, kids, this is going to be complicated, so listen carefully. The earth is spinning, but it is slowing down. So that means it used to be going faster. How many can figure that out with no help? Okay. Well, if the earth is only 6,000 years old, this is absolutely no problem. Okay, it was a few seconds faster, nobody would notice. Adam didn't have a watch anyway. But some of these guys want me to believe the earth is billions of years old. Ooh, now we have a problem. You go back a few billion years, the earth was spinning real fast. Your days and nights would be pretty quick. Get up, go to bed, get up, go to bed, get up, go to bed. You'd never get nothing done. Centrifugal force would have been enormous. The winds would have been 5,000 miles an hour from the Coriolis effect. And you think dinosaurs lived 200 million years ago? I know what happened to them. No, they did not live 200 million years ago. We'll get into more on dinosaurs on video number 3. Sahara Desert has a prevailing wind pattern. The wind almost always blows the same way. Now this creates a problem because The hot air comes off the desert and kills the trees next door, and that area becomes desert. The process is called a desertification. Well, Sahara Desert is growing about 4 miles a year. They just finished quite a big study on Sahara Desert and said, you know, folks, we think Sahara is about 4,000 years old. That's pretty old. But I have a question. If the earth is millions of years old, why don't we have an older desert someplace? Why is the biggest desert in the world only 4,000 years old? Well, I have a theory about that. Now here's my theory. I believe about 6,000 years ago, God made everything like the Bible says. 4,400 years ago, there was a flood, like the Bible says. It's pretty hard to have a desert under a flood. And so the desert couldn't start growing until the flood water went down. So based on the Bible, I would predict the biggest desert in the world will be less than 4,400 years old. It is. Wow, maybe the Bible is right. Do you know when they drill into the ground, sometimes they hit oil? The oil's under incredible pressure down there, up to 20,000 pounds per square inch. It'll come squirting up out of the ground like a big zip. 20,000 psi. Well, the rock can't handle that pressure. I mean, the oil pressure is way above the level of the surrounding, just the weight of the overlying rock. They say it should have equalized the pressure in less than 10,000 years. Okay, well then why do we still have oil pressure? Actually, where did the oil come from? That's two fair questions. Now, nearly all scientists will agree that oil comes from organisms that are squished. They're changed by heat and pressure into oil. In Australia, they had a big factory produced to make oil from sewage sludge. They can do it in 30 minutes. Sinclair Gas Company has the dinosaur as their logo. They say dinosaurs turn to oil. Yes, boys and girls, these dinosaurs mellowed for 80 million years. I don't think so. Here's my theory about the oil, okay? I believe about 6,000 years ago, God made everything, like the Bible says. 4,400 years ago, there was a flood. Big flood. In that flood, lots of critters and people drowned. And they got buried by the gravel and the sand and the rocks and the mud, and it got pretty heavy after a while, and it squished them into oil. So the oil is down there today from the people and animals that drowned in the flood. So that means if you stop and think about that, you drove over here tonight on some of your ancestors. Next time you're at the gas station, pumping them in there, you say, bye, Grandpa. You should have listened to Noah. He told you it was going to rain. It did too, didn't it? I was preaching in Denver, Colorado one time, and some guys came to the meeting and they said, now, Mr. Hovind, we know you teach the earth is 6,000 years old. We would like to prove to you you're wrong. Would you come with us, please? These guys took me to the Denver National Ice Core Laboratory at the Federal Center. They said, now we go to the North Pole, or actually to Greenland, and to the South Pole, and we drill holes through the ice. We bring up the center part of the hole, and we store it in the freezer right here. They gave me one of those huge suits about this thick and a big hat and everything else, and I walked in there, and in a few seconds, I was freezing. It's 36 below zero in that freezer. They said, now, Mr. Hovind, we took the ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica, and we saved them here in the freezer. We drill holes with this coring machine, and we bring up the center part, and we bring them back and put them in the freezer here in Lakewood, Colorado, in the Federal Center. They took me into the freezer and showed me the ice cores. They said, well, you see these rings on here? Dark and light and dark and light, sort of like tree rings. I said, yep, I see them. They said, you see, Mr. Hovind, what happens up in Greenland, in the summer the snow melts a little bit, and it refreezes and makes clear ice, shows up dark here. In the winter, the snow packs, doesn't get a chance to freeze, or doesn't get a chance to melt, and so it shows up light here because it's compressed and has the air bubbles in it. So they said what these are is annual rings, and they represent summer, winter, summer, winter, summer, winter, summer, winter. They said, now we counted these annual rings in the deepest hole we ever drilled, which was 10,000 feet, and there were 135,000 annual rings. And here you are telling everybody the earth is 6,000 years old, and we can prove it's 135,000. I said, fellas, aren't you assuming those are annual rings? See, they did not know about the Lost Squadron, but some airplanes ran out of gas during World War II and landed in Greenland. And so they forgot about them until 1990,